Wonderful. Good evening and welcome to the August meeting of the Tupelo Planning Committee. Please take a moment to silence your cell phones. Got one. At this time, please rise for the invocation by Jimmy Swan.
Shall we pray? Our Father, in the name of your one and only begotten Son, we come to you tonight with thankful hearts. Thanking you for your love and your mercy. Thanking you, Father, for the sweetness and certainty of your presence. We do pray for your presence tonight. We just pray that everything is done tonight and be done according to your scripture, that we do everything with decency and in order as we continue to look into you as our ever-present help, our most confident hope, and our unfleeting happiness. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much. Ted, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Oh, Ted, unmute yourself, please.
It's a good idea, thank you. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Please come up, please. Introduce yourself again. Thank you. Let's see, the Tupelo Planning Committee is a volunteer group appointed by the mayor and city council. We do not receive compensation and do it as a community service. The community spends a lot of time in our own funds studying, researching the applications, and visiting the sites that are on our agenda each month. We ask that you remember that we do not take our positions lightly on any application. Our decisions are based on facts as they are presented and with regard to the regulations set forth in the city code. The planning committee may impose conditions on the approvals of a request as it deems necessary to mitigate potential hazards or problems or bring the nonconformity into compliance to the extent necessary to protect the rights and interests of nearby property owners and the general public. At this time, I would like the staff and committee members to introduce themselves. I'm Leslie Mart, and I am president of the planning committee.
Gus Hildenbrand.
Jimmy Swan.
Bill Smith.
Ted Moll.
You muted, unmute yourself, Ted.
I get you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. At this time, let's see. Oh, Pat, did you introduce yourself?
I'm Pat Fulton, I'm the planning director.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. At this time, we will review the last meeting minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes of the last meeting? Are there any additions or corrections?
I move we accept the minutes as they're written.
Second.
All right, so we have. Okay, very good. So who did we have a motion by and who was the?
Gus Hildenbrand, Gus Hildenbrand made the motion.
Okay, Gus Hildenbrand made the motion and the second was by,
Swan.
was that Jimmy?
Jimmy.
Okay, Jimmy Swan. Thank you. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed? None. The motion carries. Wonderful. Mr. Faulkner, do you have anything to report on the City Council's action from our last meeting?
The council approved those actions at their second meeting in June.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Mr. Faulkner. At this time, we'll move on to our agenda. There is only one item on the agenda tonight, number Flex VAR 20-06. As we work through these items, if you are here in order to comment on an application, please, when you are asked, move to the podium, speak into the microphone, state your name and address before offering comment. So, at this time, for the Flex Variance 20-06, I will read the description. Bear with me a moment. Hang on just 1 minute. Where's that description at, Marilyn? Sorry. Marilyn, oh, here, she's got it up on the screen. There we go, thank you. The Department of Development Services has received a variance application from Mr. J. Carney on behalf of First United Pentecostal Church to locate an accessory structure, which is the dumpster and dumpster enclosure, in the front yard of their property. They propose to move the dumpster to the southeast corner of the intersection of their east driveway and Willow Chase Drive. The Tupelo Development Code requires accessory uses in residential zones to be placed in the rear yard. The dumpster currently sits on the north side of their property. The property is located in the mixed-use residential zoning district. Mr. Faulkner, have the surrounding property owners been identified? And if so, were there any responses?
Yes, there were. We received several emails and phone calls on this, and there's several here tonight.
Okay, thank you. Pat, should I read the responses before we move on to asking if there's anybody there on site?
I think if we could probably just go ahead and let the applicant speak, and then we can hear if there's anybody else.
Good point. Thank you very much for keeping me on target. Sir, would you please come to the podium, state your name, address, and present your request to the committee?
My name is, if you could move around this way a little bit for the people who are
Absolutely.
using the camera.
Can they see me here? Or, here we go.
There you go.
My name is Jay Carney. Address is 900 South Thomas Street, and I am the pastor of Life at Tupelo, First United Pentecostal Church, and we're here tonight to request a variance to this ordinance. And first of all, appreciate what you guys do. Thank you for your service to our community, and it's an honor to meet you and see some of your faces and part of other faces, but different times for all of us. But I moved here January 1st of 2017, been pastoring a little over 3.5 years. And basically, you can see the existing dumpster, and met with Waste Management out there, and they recommended where we proposed it, and also met with the city engineer, and he thought it was a good idea as well. And we submitted the application. Appreciate Marilyn working with us, but basically it's just Waste Management is destroying our driveway and our parking lot. In my past is construction before I went into the ministry full time. I worked in construction for 33 years. I started when I was 12 and ran about a $100 million company. And so I left that to go full time in the ministry. And it's just very expensive to repair the driveway and the parking lot if it's damaged anymore. And we just, would prefer to have it where we didn't have to repair several $100,000. And just during these COVID times, certainly finances are challenging for all of us, and we would appreciate any consideration the city would have, and certainly do what we could to make it presentable and follow the codes and guidelines to make sure nothing is seen with it. But that was certainly the recommendation of Waste Management as far as the place to put it on the property. And that is the southeast corner. Our address is 900 South Thomas Street. So our church faces west. And so technically that's in the back of the church, even though it's on the side street. But it is not in the front of the church. I wouldn't want it there as a pastor. You know, we have done most probably $150,000 worth of renovations the last 3.5 years to make a good first impression and certainly continue to improve that property. And we want to continue to do that. So we don't want to do anything to hurt our neighbor's property or certainly our property. We want to continue to increase the value. I think we've increased it greatly since we've been there. So it's certainly our recommendation to the city to make a variance concerning this, just to save us hundreds of thousands of dollars that we don't have. So. And I'll answer any questions.
Sorry about that, I forgot to unmute myself. Does the committee have any questions for the applicant?
Did the church discuss the fact that you're putting the dumpster right in the front yard of the house across the street?
Yep. Our church discussed that?
Yeah.
Yes.
And they were okay with it?
100% unanimous.
And were the people across the street, you think?
No, we haven't talked to anyone, or any of our neighbors. I understand through the process that would be communicated. We want to make it look as nice as, I reckon, any dumpster in Tupelo, any area. We're not trying to, we're not trying to, you can ask any of our neighbors. I mean, we've tried to work on the inside and the outside continually, but we don't want any eyesore to them or us. And so that's just the only place it can go. You know, it was where it was at when I got here as a pastor, and it's just continued to get worse and worse. And we're just trying to alleviate having to redo that parking lot in the back of the church. So, you know, we come here today with our hat in our hand. We're not trying to be bad citizens or bad neighbors. We want to do what's right for everybody. And we don't want to cause any issues with anybody. And so, you know, we will do whatever this planning committee decides to do, but we certainly would greatly appreciate it if it was considered. But, you know, you guys, you know, certainly have that final authority. So that's just our recommendation.
What items typically go into the dumpster? I know now with the pandemic, you may not even be having services in person.
We do.
At our church, but typically, is there a weekday program there? I know nursery items would go in there. And do you have a weekday program? Or?
No, sir. We basically moved here. Had about 100 constituents, and now we have about 400 in the last 3 years. And so we do 2 services. We started that in September before the pandemic, and since the pandemic, we've gone back to 2 services. We do a 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock, and we've been doing that since May the 31st. And this Wednesday night, we're going back to Wednesday night in person. So we do in person and online. And, you know, yesterday we fed our leadership team, and that was about 50 people, and, you know, just normal business of the church. And so they
some office refuse and maybe food items.
Absolutely, just normal church stuff.
Nursery
items. That's correct. Just continual, you know, it's nothing major, it's just garbage. And, you know, we actually doubled the size of the dumpster since I've been there, because it just didn't, the previous one didn't satisfy our need for the growth in the congregation. So we hope to continue to grow, and you know, that's our goal and plan, is to be good stewards and good neighbors, and do what we can to add value to this community.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you received any quotes from contractors to cut out and repair the concrete paving at the dumpster's current location so that it would be designed properly to withstand the loads that the dumpster is imposing?
We have not.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you, sir. You may be seated.
Thank you, Leslie.
We will now open the public portion of the hearing for this application. Please hold your comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. Is there anyone here to speak for or against? And if so, would you please step up to the location that Mr. Cammy was at and state your name and your address, please?
I guess this is okay. My name is Karen Mayfield, and I live at 2403 Willow Chase Drive. So I am the property that is directly across from the proposed location of the dumpster where the concrete slab has been laid.
Thank you. Please go on with your comment.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate everyone taking the time to listen to both sides of the situation. And I just appreciate everything that everyone's doing to make the right decision. As the pastor stated, the neighborhood was not, at least the people I spoke with, we were not aware of the desire to relocate the dumpster in the location that it was put, that the slab was put, until we received the letter from the city of Tupelo. And we all have noticed that the church has done some improvements to make the church more attractive on the outside, and we noticed that they were changing some of the landscape. But I have to say that I oppose the relocation of the dumpster, and I have several reasons to go through. My first reason is that it's a neighborhood safety issue, and those safety issues are that where the location is, the dumpster has the possibility of blocking the view of cars coming from either direction. And a lot of people walk through there, kids ride bicycles through there, and if the church is having services or meetings, there's the possibility that people would be walking on that street and they wouldn't be seen from the dumpster as people were leaving the church. So I'm concerned about car accidents and pedestrian issues. Also, my concern is with it being an easy view of South Thomas Street, that passersby will see that there's a dumpster there. And my concern is that they're going to come and utilize it because it has such easy access. And I personally do not want that to happen. I don't want to have trash in a dump in front of my house, as I'm sure the church doesn't want their area to be used by people that don't belong to their church. And I have seen people come through our neighborhood when we have had construction, and there have been large dumpsters there. People have come and put their trash in those dumpsters, as well as I have seen when the church is cleaning the brush away, people come and put brush in their brush pile to be taken care of from off the street. The other concern I have is with that unauthorized use of the dumpster, that just brings a lot of traffic into our neighborhood, and that's a security issue as well, because they're not residents of our neighborhood. There's only one way in and one way out, and most of us all know who comes in and who comes out and what cars are typically there. A couple of more concerns is the noise of the garbage truck first thing in the morning. The garbage truck comes at sometimes 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. I know my room is right across from where that dumpster will be set. So the garbage truck will be right in front of my window. We can hear it as it is where it's located, but it's not terribly loud. Having it in the front of the property is going to really make it quite obnoxious at early hours of the morning. Of course, I think you mentioned what type of refuse would be in the garbage and what kind of smell it would create for people as they're recreating in the neighborhood, as they're walking, riding their bikes, taking kids out to play. what kind of odor and what kind of stench are we going to have to deal with. We live in this neighborhood all the time, so that will consistently be there, and it'll be something we need to deal with. And then lastly, the view. I will be looking out my house windows right at that location of the dumpster. And I know that they've talked about putting an enclosure there, but honestly, when I look out my window, I don't want to see a dumpster. I don't want to see an enclosure knowing there's a dumpster there, and it raises concerns for my property value and those of my neighbors when we go to sell our home, trying to sell our house knowing that there's a dumpster across the street. So I respectfully object to having the dumpster relocated, and I ask that the code that's already set forth by the city of Tupelo be held in the residential areas with the dumpster remaining in its current location.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you coming forward and participating in this process.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Is there anybody else who would like to step up to where Ms. Mayfield was standing? Please state your name and address.
If you don't want to say anything, you can say, you say what she said. Yeah, just say 6 feet away from the line.
Good now.
Hi.
So, how you doing? I'm First Sergeant Curry. Live at 1116 Forest Glen Cove. Been there about 2 years now, and I agree with everything that Ms. Mayfield addressed tonight. Another one, my concern is when we come out and we sit on our front porch, the dumpster will be right in our front view. I'm about 126 feet away from where the dumpster is. Just by being in the military for over 20 years, you never put a enclosure or dumpster 100 feet either downwind or south of where your living quarters are at. And so I understand that, you know, Pastor Jay has improved a lot with the church and the community. But our kids, our daughters, they actually ride their bicycles up and down those streets with the other children that live in the area. And I think it would be not only just a smell, but just a view from our house to where they're proposed trying to put it. I don't think it would be a good idea, but you know, that's why we're here now, for you all to make the decision on that part.
Thank you very much, Sergeant Curry. Thank you for your service to our country, and thank you for participating in this process.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody else?
Yes.
Hi.
Hello, my name is Crystal Curry. Sergeant Curry is First Sergeant Curry is my husband. I also oppose the proposed location of the dumpster. And it's mainly for safety purposes because our daughters and we as a family walk or ride bike in the same area where that dumpster would be put. So I oppose, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for coming forth and participating in this process. Do we have anybody else?
Oh man, it's coming.
Was that a no, ma'am, or a I'm coming?
Good evening. Can you see me now? Good evening. Appreciate y'all allowing me to speak. On behalf of the City of Tupelo, I'm Councilman Willie Jennings for Ward 7. That was my ward. I got a call from some of the residents in that area that are concerned of the dumpster. So I drove out and looked at it, and I'm not gonna sit up here and say, you know, I listen to both sides, the pastor and the community. But I think it would be a disservice to the, community that it's a dumpster already in the back location. And I understand the pastor's talking about the destruction of the, right-of-way, get to it. And I heard him say that he didn't want it in front of the church, but that's the whole reason that the community don't want it in front of their house. So, as a representative of the council, Ward 7, I would have to agree with the residents of opposing this, putting it at that location, because we're about beautification in the city of Tupelo. And I think it'll be a disservice to the residents in that area by setting that dumpster at that location when it's already in a good location. I would recommend that the church, if I may get a second dumpster back here, and they could cut down on the amount of coming in. Maybe, I don't know how many trips they make back there, but that would cut down on how many trips they would make to the dumpster. If they have a second dumpster back there where it's already located. And I don't know if that's something y'all thought about. How many times, if I may, how many times do they pick up that week?
Once a week.
Once a week.
How would a second dumpster help?
Twice a second. So if it, what'd you say, sir?
How would a second dumpster help?
They could do it, say if once a week, they could do it, once a month. If you had two dumpsters back there that size, that would cut down on the trip. I just want to suggest, I'm trying to help solve a problem. But I do support the residents, and it's not being against the church.
We've got about 400 people there that certainly are in favor of it.
Yeah, I got a call from the residents today, so they asked me to support this, and I looked at it, and I do support the residents of not putting a dumpster at the new location and letting it stay at the location that it's at now. So I appreciate y'all listening to me.
Thank you, Mr. Jennings. We appreciate you representing your Ward 7. All right. Do we have anybody else? All right. This closes the public portion of this application review. We are now open for committee discussion. Does the Department of Development Services have a perspective on this application?
We do. We recommended that it not be approved.
Okay. Thank you, Pat. Is there further discussion or questions?
Pat, is this not on the right of way of the city?
A big part of it is in the city right away and would need to be removed. It's not used.
Okay. And the other thing is I know the church has got 400 members, but they don't live there. They only come to church there. And so this dumpster is there for the people that live there is going to be the problem for them. So.
So I have a couple of comments. So in my inquiry discussions with Development Services, there was no permit requested nor issued for where this building pad is currently located, which of course is on the public right-of-way. So that's number one there. It would be my thought that pad needs to be removed if this is not carried. The second item that I wanted to address is that I actually sent over to Development Services drawings that show the proper concrete pad and enclosure that should be installed for a dumpster. You cannot have 4 inches of concrete paving and not expect it to deteriorate when you have a dumpster with a garbage truck coming up, emptying that dumpster and having the force of that emptying as it lifts it up and empties it. So they put it in a location that if they're experiencing deterioration, then there's a failure of the concrete. So I sent over that design so that the church could actually cut out the damaged area on their lot at its existing location and get a new proper dumpster pad installed. I'm going to also further say, third item here, is that if we did allow the dumpster pad to be located where it's showing, the damage would now occur on a public street, which now would make the city liable to have to make the repairs to the existing asphalt and paving out there. That's not an expense that I, as a taxpayer, want to incur for a dumpster that belongs to a private business. Fourth item is that this dumpster would be located at the main entry into a subdivision. There are neighbors across the street, and we've heard from 2 of them, as well as many other neighbors back there. And I don't think it's fair to impose having the view, the stench, potentially the rodents that would be associated with this right out at the public access. So those are my main items of concern. I'll now turn it over to anybody else on the committee. Does anybody else have any questions, comments?
I'd just like to say I agree.
You agree, Patty, with the comments that I made?
Yes. Yes. I don't, and that with the residents and will okay.
This is Gus Hilton Grant. I so move that we do not allow this flex variance from the committee. We do not recommend that.
And I'll second it.
Okay. Do we have any further discussion? Are we ready to vote then? We had a motion by Gus Hildenbrand and a second by Patty Thompson to deny this variance application. All in favor of denying the application? Wait a minute, before we do that, let me ask this question. Do we also need to put something in there that states they must remove this concrete parking pad, or the concrete pad?
Yes.
Okay, so let me amend the motion. I make a motion that deny the application for variance, and we require the church to remove the concrete pad that was placed out on the right of way.
And I'll second that one.
Okay, all in favor of the motion? Aye?
Hi, my hand is up, by the way.
Okay, we see it, we see it down there. All against? All right. Mr. Carney, I am sorry to say that this motion does not pass. I am sorry, you'll need to leave your dumpster where it is, and furthermore, you need to have that concrete pad removed.
The city council makes the final decision on that, though, Leslie.
Oh, good point.
Yeah.
Okay, good point, Gus. Thank you very much. So what I just said is going to be our recommendation to the city council. Thank you for that, Gus. Okay, let's see. We did, the motion was there, the discussion, ready to vote. We did that. Oh, Mr. Faulkner, could you please rewind? I'm a little out of whack here. I do apologize for that. So there are no additional agenda items. So thank you for being here. The council will review our decisions, and Mr. Faulkner will report back their findings at our next meeting. Mr. Faulkner, do we currently have applications for the next meeting?
Yes, we have 2.
Okay. So our work session will then be on let's see, would that be the 31st of August?
I don't have a calendar in front of me.
That's the last Monday.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay? And then our next meeting will be, So Pat, Monday, September 7th is Labor Day.
Labor Day.
Suggest the 14th.
Yeah, we can do the 14th.
So our next meeting would be on 9/14. Do we still keep our work session for 8/31?
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. Is this acceptable to the staff and the committee?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Wonderful.
okay.
Do I have a motion? Oh, let's see. I'd like to thank everyone for your cooperation tonight. Are there any other comments or discussion? Mr. Faulkner, do you have anything further for the
What would
committee?
the solution be to help the church out?
Mr. Curry is asking a question. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Marilyn.
Okay. Mr. Curry asked a question on what the result is going to be for the church.
Solution.
The solution, they'll have to leave it where it is. That was previously approved when they built the building, and they'll have to leave it where it is.
Marilyn, you are going to need to come up front because it's just muffled.
Sorry.
That's what I'm saying.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Mr. Curry asked what the solution would be for the church, and I explained to him that the dumpster would need to stay where it is on the property, and that
All right.
there's,
And he'll have to remove the
and you have
concrete
to remove the
slab,
concrete.
and he'll have to pay for the fixing of his driveway or
Right.
whatever, which is normal maintenance.
Right. I'm sorry.
No, and I will remind Marilyn, I emailed over
Are you, yeah,
that had details and
Right.
sections.
I'll forward it to him.
Yeah,
I haven't done it yet, I forgot about it, I'm sorry, but I will get it to him tomorrow.
Right, and it's a real design. So this is what, I am in construction, and this is what we do for our construction, our dumpster pad. So it's legitimate. I'm happy to help any way I can. Okay. Anything further for the committee? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I would like to mention something that we probably will not get into today. We intended to, but we're going to need to begin the process of looking at the comprehensive plan, which technically goes out to the year 2025, but we need to be starting that. And what I wanted to do to start that would be first to have Patty give us a report on the economic recovery group that she's been involved with.
Do you want to go ahead and do that this evening?
We've already been talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, we got time.
Yeah, the people here from the public meeting, may or may not be interested, but yeah, we can go ahead and do that.
All right, well, so if anybody is there that does not want to hear about the future planning, thank you guys for coming. We appreciate y'all. And so Patty, I'm going to turn this over to you and let you and Pat let us know what y'all are talking about.
Well, okay. Pat asked me to work with the economic committee that I'm on, and a lot of the suggestions that I've been getting were just things that I had not even possibly thought about, like senior centers, gated community sports centers, again, more public transportation. Everything seemed to be more senior oriented. So, at this point, that's pretty much all I was getting.
Well,
Water parks. People want water parks.
Well, one of the things that we wanted to get out there and start having people think about was some of the things that we've been doing as a city to make our economy grow and our job base develop may or may not be as effective going forward because of what's been happening with retail already. Brick and mortar retail is losing market share all over the country, and it'll hit us next. And then the other thing that we've been counting on big time were places with the travel industry, the hospitality industry, restaurants, sectors that the pandemic has really hit very hard. And so we're going to need to do some serious thinking about whether we can continue with the same ideas or we're going to have to come up with something new. And obviously those are big questions we can't begin to answer yet, but we got to ask them.
You know, I agree. I was part of that 2025 when we were doing all of that brainstorming and trying to come up with different ways to make some of those recommendations come to fruition and some of that planning. And so I certainly think with everything that's happened this year that it causes us to reevaluate where some of those plans were going and or how to modify some of those plans so that we can still stay on track and yet be safe and keep our communities safe. So I think it's wonderful. So what are your guys, are there, so Patty, I know that you are part of the commission on, and excuse me for not remembering the name, but there's a
Recovery Commission.
The what?
Economic Recovery.
Okay, so are you guys talking about the 2025 comprehensive plan and what you guys can, you know, what are some ideas to reinvigorate that?
Well, it's been up some emails, and I have actually talked to a few people. I actually posted it on Facebook to see what the general public wanted, and that was where it got really interesting. But I think we're seeing a lot of the national situation. Actually had some people talking about having the social workers work with the police department. I don't really want to use the term defund the police because that's not what we're looking at. But I do understand what they're talking about when they say we need more social workers working with the police department or our local law enforcement. They keep saying better roads. Well, I think we do have pretty good roads, and I think the commission that handles Greg Herbal's commission, I can't think of the name of it right now. I think they've done an excellent job getting the streets lined up for us. Most of the people talk about the teenagers and what we could do to help them. And like I said, somebody mentioned we need more entertainment venues, more gated communities, more things for senior citizens. But if we're going to be living in a COVID world, I don't see how we can safely do any of those things at this time. But I guess we are looking down the road 10 years or so.
Yeah. Well, it's very interesting because, you know, I've been thinking about that. I did see your email and I wanted to kind of hear what you guys had to say before I actually replied to some of that. You know, I drive through some of the neighborhoods and we still see the light. I mean, light's not gone away, and in some neighborhoods, as we've cleaned up others, there are some residents who have moved, and those neighborhoods that they're moving into are either already lighted and not getting better, or with the influx, they're getting worse. And, you know, it is curious what we can do to work on some of those areas.
It is interesting, though, where the Ida Street project has gone through and the new houses have been built. If you go driving around Bogan and Central and all those people are really coming along and renovating those older houses. Central Street, Smith, all of those streets. I drove over there to see what they were talking about. And to be honest, it's quite impressive. Somebody is actually renovating those old houses.
We are, and that is one of the neighborhoods that I frequent now because my office has moved in. So I am cutting through, I'll admit this, and some of the houses are really doing quite well, and then others seem to be so far worse. And it's almost disheartening to see some of those in such disrepair. But it is getting better. But but, you know, what do we need to do to help stimulate those neighborhoods? And I was watching a TV show the other night, and they were talking about gentrification, and I don't think I said that word right, which does not necessarily mean a great thing, but they talked about gentrification without relocation. So in other words, revitalizing those areas without displacing the people who live there. Now help bring those areas back up so that they're living in great areas too. Clean, you know, nice areas where your kids are playing down the street, and you know, and I think that that's so important. Everybody deserves to live in a clean house, a house that is really up to code, and where you're not living where a slumlord is just getting by. You know, we all deserve a different opportunity. So that's
Yeah, of course, what's helped on Ida Street there, and also on Monument over there with those houses are rental units, in essence, right now. And that's made those landlords clean up those houses, which is good, because they can't, you know, there are a lot of people that might have been potential renters are no longer interested in renting the junk that they have, and so they're cleaning up and working on the houses. It still bothers me that we just keep adding and adding more rental property to Tupelo, that there gets to be a point where you get too much rental property and not enough actually home-owned residents, and the city starts going down. So that's it.
Well, we do have to address the homeless situation too. We've got to come up with something that's going to be a little bit better than what we have at this point. We do have a lot of homeless people here.
and it seems to be growing.
And the retail situation, there's a lot of FedEx and UPS and Amazon. They're just all over the neighborhoods anymore delivering stuff. And I noticed that on that next door, about every day they delivered it to the wrong address and whatever. And so maybe there's a chance for an industry there that would be a clearinghouse for those people for it. In other words,
I'd love to be able to see our post office get the right addresses.
yeah, well.
And what are we going to do with the mall? That was another comment. You know, we are in the phase of demalling America, so what are we going to do with the mall?
That is interesting. I was working with a particular developer a few years back, and they had been in some other communities where they had old malls, and they converted them into housing.
That's what I was going to say, living quarters. That's what they, you know, that would make, it'd make a great living quarter if it was done right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They had like these apartments that were condos. They were basically condos that they put in. It was a really creative way to take a space that was too big to, and they didn't have industry to sell it to. It was pretty unique.
I think we need to do a cost analysis of the revenue that the mall brings in, because it is a regional mall, but I love the idea of turning it into living space.
Mm-hmm. Well, isn't that a huge part of our tax structure? Isn't that mall?
And the thing about it, when you turn it into living space, you also create retail space for restaurants and play areas and other things that could be in that area too. And so it's a different living retail situation is what it is. Yeah.
Are we hitting the target path?
Pat,
What was that?
are we hitting
Are
the
we
target?
hitting the target?
Yeah, what we're doing right now is sort of just staking out some ground. We obviously don't have answers for any of these things yet, but we do have to be able to ask the right questions.
I can hear part of them.
Yeah, kind of back and forth.
Yeah, we can probably make more progress if we get to meet in person again.
Is the thoroughfare committee taking into consideration not only retail but also residential when they have their planning sessions? Or is the thoroughfare committee totally retail, business? They're thinking, their paradigm?
Yeah, they work on the major streets where the businesses are. They don't think in terms of residential.
But the one thing is, Patty says, is the malls, you know, when you do away from malls, you do away from a lot of income and a lot of retail business, a lot of fluctuation,
No, I don't think anybody's talking about doing away with it. I think we're just afraid that it'll go away on its own.
yeah, well, I'm talking about, you know, that's what it does. Kind of like where the downtown mall is now, the civic center and whatever, you know, and the other mall is hospital space, a lot of it, so, yeah,
Well, Tupelo has a history of finding ways to reuse property.
yeah.
When you look around as far as some of the big box stores, as Walmart moved on, those buildings have been reused for other things. The pandemic is causing some of the national companies to close, and that's affecting the mall because the traffic is down. But it's hitting those stores nationally. It's not a local problem. It's a national problem. And it may just, when we start this, we may just need to pull Jeff in and hear what he has to say. Jeff Snyder, the mall manager. Could y'all hear me? I don't know if they could.
Okay? All right, so it sounds like, so where do we need to go from here? Patty, what do you guys want from us? Or you want to kind of gnaw on some of the ideas that we've just just right now brainstormed and threw out there, and y'all decide where we need to go, what we need to do.
What I would envision would be a process that kind of starts slowly with the committee, with bringing people in, like Marilyn suggests, bringing in somebody who is familiar with the retail trends that can tell us what they see coming down the path. And then the planning committee would be, in essence, a steering committee that would eventually broaden out to be a bigger group once we start in that planning process.
In other words, might truly be a planning committee.
Exactly.
Instead of just a answer to problems.
Yeah.
Well, I have a story I'd like to share about, I remember while we were talking, to show you that our mixed-use concept that we adopted in 2013, some people are starting to get it. I talked to a young man today whose wife is opening up a medical practice, and they're just getting their business off the ground. So they are going to take a commercial building and try to convert it so that they can live in half of it and have her business in the other half of it, so that they will reduce their finances as she's building her clientele. And then as her clientele grows and she builds that up, then they'll move out of that into a traditional home, and she'll use that area that they've created as part of her practice. So,
Great idea.
so that, you know, there are people who are being creative about, and they're opening up the idea to the old-fashioned, have your business on the first floor and live in the apartment on the second floor, that a lot of cities still have that today, just not in Tupelo.
Stephen's working on one right now for the Old Family Resource Center. Actually, it's just the opposite. They're going to retire, well, they're downsizing, so they're going to live on the top floor and have their business on the bottom floor.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're meeting with them on Thursday, I believe.
I hope it works.
I think that that's a wonderful idea. Wonderful, wonderful. All right. Further discussion plan, so we will meet, do our work session on the 31st, unless, of course, there's something else that the Economic Recovery Committee would like to throw out at us to kind of think about and take a look at.
Okay?
All right. I call this meeting adjourned. Okay, I have to get a motion and stuff.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
I second.
Wonderful. Thank you, you guys.
All right, good night.
Good night.